Hey everyone, Laura Brzee, executive speech coach, speech therapist, and master of helping you overcome speaking fear. That's what I'm going to start focusing on. Recently, I had a situation where somebody was watching my video, they called me for a consult, and then they said, you know what, you're really kind of different whenever you are talking on the phone versus whenever you're on your YouTube videos. And I realized that I need to probably back off the whole formality of being on YouTube and really just chat with you. And so I really started doing some brainstorming about what that's going to look like and what I can talk about rather than, coming up with a topic, trying to figure out a structure and a framework and all this stuff. And really, honestly, this is what I do. So I always tell clients that I can talk about what I do in my sleep and I know it that well. And, honestly, I need to impart that genuine authenticity on my YouTube channel for you. So anyway, going to be a little bit more casual in this situation. The irony, ironically, in this is so funny because when we are trying to perform as what I have attempted to do via YouTube in the past, it's like whenever I'm coaching, I say stuff like, well, in certain situations, you're just talking, and in other situations, you have to speak, right? So speaking is more that outward projection, that formality. And on my YouTube, historically, I've kind of been always trying to speak, like I'm going to a seminar and I'm going to, present something. That's public speaking. Well, in YouTube, and the constructive criticism that I got was I need to be talking more, right? So as if all of you are my friends, which you are, perhaps, I don't know. I don't even know where you're watching from. I'll have to take a look, drop it in the comments if you're wanting to introduce yourself. But, that's the thing is I need to start talking on YouTube and not speaking. And I think that's a really good skill to understand because whenever, for example, if you are presenting in public, you probably need to also decide, do you need to be talking to them or do you need to be speaking to them? Because there are some situations that are going to have that formality. But anyway, all that aside, I wanted to share with you that I have a vocal mechanics questionnaire that all of my next 100 videos are going to be addressing particular issues from that vocal mechanics questionnaire. What is the vocal mechanics questionnaire? Well, all of my new clients who I work with, I have to get more of a snapshot of what's going on with their public speaking or speaking in general or their talking in general, so that I can then have an understanding of what's breaking down. Because if you're fearful, anxious, if you are overthinking, if you are self-doubting, judging yourself, things like that, then something is going on that's breaking down in your speaking and your talking. And we need to know what that is because for you to be a confident speaker, you have to resolve those issues. So, I'm talking too fast here because now I have to breathe. So to resolve those issues, right, I need to kind of get a profile for each individual speaker. And that is what the vocal mechanics enunciation, I need to do that too. That is what the vocal mechanics questionnaire does, is it gives me a snapshot of what's going on with you or a potential client. But guess what? Maybe you'll never become a client, which is completely fine because that's why we're here, is for you to learn some different tools and techniques or some insights about speaking fear. I still have not to date found an expert out there who talks specifically about speaking fear. I did mention in a video that I did a couple weeks ago that I am developing a book and I'm trying to develop having people understand that overcoming speaking fear is really not that complicated. It's been made to be way more complicated online than it needs to be because it's not, right? We just have to understand what is going on with you and why your speech is breaking down. You also need to understand that there are going to be reasons that you are fearful. So fear is an alert system to say, want, want, something is going wrong in this particular specific speaking situation that you need to pay attention to. Okay, most people just take the concept of speaking fear and just dump it in the bucket and say, oh, I have speaking fear and that's it, I don't know what to do with it. It's almost like, an octopus or something, like sitting in a bucket and you're like, I don't know what to do with this thing, right? But regardless, it's not. Speaking fear is more like, okay, an alert system saying like, there's big waves right now, or I don't really know what it is that I'm going to need to say because I am having a shaky voice. That's the first topic that we're going to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and refer to my vocal mechanics questionnaire. Again, if I hadn't already said it, I will pop the vocal questionnaire link. It is a Google form, so if you want to take a look at it or complete it just for your own information, there's no scoring to it at all. It's just simply you understanding what's going on with you and how that stacks up. Because when you do start working on it, at least you have identified what you need to work on, not this whole entire, let's eat an elephant one bite at a time kind of thing. You need to know specifically what's going on with you. All right. Now, number one in my common symptoms related to your vocal mechanics would be my voice shakes or quivers whenever I am nervous. All right. So what's going on with that is, unfortunately, we got a couple of different areas that we need to address, okay? Because you would think that a shaky voice, in actually one of my previous videos, I did talk about a shaky voice. Oftentimes it does have an issue with the airflow, right? You're nervous, you have shallow breathing, and therefore it's disrupting the airflow on your speech. So disrupted airflow means disrupted speech, right? But it's not always the case. Let's kind of go back to another category, not speech. Let's talk about your brain, right? How you think about what's going on in your presentation or your discussion. So if you're having a shaky voice, sometimes literally, like, have you heard the quote? I cannot remember who said it, but speak your mind even if your voice shakes. Well, that's a perfect metaphor for what I'm about to say, which is whatever language you have to use or whatever discussion you're going to have from the standpoint of sharing your words, that is potentially going to make you nervous because you're unsure of the message, right? How's it going to land? Are you going to get in trouble? Are you going to get fired? Is this going to cause a major blow up, right? Are you holding back because you historically have sort of a weird dynamic relationship with your boss, meaning workplace, relationship, but your boss is just not approachable, or maybe it's a personal relationship where that person is not approachable. And so you have to plan your words as to avoid any particular conflict. Okay, so that's really the first one, is what's going on up here in your beliefs about how and if you can get your message across. And if you don't feel comfortable and confident doing that, then what happens? Your voice is going to shake. Okay? Another one is the emotional experience that we have as speakers that might drive some shakiness in our voice. So it makes me think of like whenever you have a really rapid heart rate, okay? And you're like, say you're in class or in a board meeting or some situation where you were sort of waiting your turn to talk. That is what ignites a lot of anxiety for people, is whenever they have to have that delayed time before they share their speech. It's very, very frustrating. So what happens there is whenever you have a really rapid heartbeat, sometimes the rapid heartbeat is also going to trigger other significant things going on in your body, okay? It could be a sick stomach. It could be something like really like a lot of tightness, one thing that we know about the fight or flight stress response is that immediately when the adrenaline is coursing through your body, it's going to tighten your muscles. That's a direct response. And so if you have tightness in your throat, in your larynx, in your shoulders, in your chest, right, in your head, in your jaw, right, in your lips, I mean, everything, all that can also, that tension is going to potentially disrupt the flow of your speech. So, you know, doing some calming methods, which we will talk about in another video because that will be specific to that. Right now, I'm just sharing the specifics about what is going on behind that shaky voice. So far, again, we have tension and also unsure about your message, okay? The last thing I want to share is, you know, a little bit more about that breathing, because that's kind of like the physical component of making sure that your breath is smooth and strong. I believe in my previous videos, and I've got several vocal yoga videos in my library where I do share specifically about doing what I call a sustained ah or an E sound. So these are two vowel sounds that can help you really calibrate your voice. Okay, your voice is your instrument. I know it sounds ridiculous. People say, oh, whatever, that's one of those silly types of, you know, figures of speech. Your voice is your instrument. Well, it is your instrument. And most people, including yourself, if you're watching this video, is that you're having to use your voice for your job. So like I ask my clients this all the time, like if you lost your voice, what would you do for your job? You know, it really does bring up some insight there that you really need to take care of your voice. Just like your tools, okay? If you're mechanical or somebody who is very technical and you're using a lot of tools, guess what? You're probably gonna need to calibrate them if they have like a setting that needs to be calibrated. Like, I don't know, I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole about that. You get it. Tools need to be calibrated. Your voice needs to be calibrated, okay? So whether or not you are nervous to speak, you really should be doing a vocal warm-up every day that includes what I call an E or an ah, sustained phonation in speech therapy terms. Sustained phonation means to carry your voicing for a sustained amount of time. And I would suggest that you do it on the breath, right? So you take an inhale, exhale, ah, for as long as you can. I've had some practice, all right? Don't try and mimic me if you haven't done this before. But yeah, kind of like an opera singer. Oh, gotta go. Let me know if you have any thoughts or comments, and I will see you in the next video.